Welcome to the World Mandate Set Piece instructional video. We're going to make some happy little squares. They're going to look like this in the beginning, in the end. But I'm going to start this from the beginning, where we're going to take our ribbon cable. We're going to get our pieces on here, get them all tested and mounted just like you see here. And then I'm going to walk through the whole process. You'll probably see a couple of mistakes, just so you can see some of the pitfalls myself. We've made about, I don't know, 8 of these by now, so we've kind of seen the good and ugly of it. So the neat thing is, when she's all said and done, these will glow up in some very cool neon colors. And actually, I can show you just some of the pieces themselves. I mean, some nice blues, green, red, and these will all be DMX controllable in the end, so that we can mix colors and have a lot of fun each individual square. So let's get started. All right, we're going to take our ribbon right off the bat. About 5 feet of this, which is on the back, are some dots. Woohoo! Some cut dots, and we're going to do 1, 2, 3. So we cut on 1, 2, cut on the 3rd dot. It's about 5 feet, which will give you just enough to go all the way around. There are some cut lines. I just use a chop cutter, which kind of does it all in one fell swoop. You can actually do this with a utility knife. Definitely use a sharp one, because you want to get these as cleanly cut as possible. All right, so this also, by the way, only goes in one direction. So the power and control only go in on one side. If you try to run it from this side, it isn't going to work. So as you can see, the connectors are all in the same spot. So if you ever forget, lay it naturally in the natural curve. It's always going to be on your left. So our first connector, there are some pins inside. Some of the makers might actually have the pins already out of them. I've already wrapped my pliers in some tape just to kind of deal with grip as well as marring of the pins. The pins actually have rounded tips on one side and some very tapered edges on the other. And you've got 4 wires chopped in that these are just going to slide into. I know, I said just. This is probably the most annoying piece, getting these all lined up and in, and then keeping them straight. So definitely use your pliers. Try to push them in all at once and then get them seated. And this is where you're going to be testing at every point. So you definitely want to have your power supply up on a switch to be able to turn it on and off. The wiring in this has your V plus at the bottom pin and then your RGB on the other side. So it makes it a little easier just to kind of touch and see. So red worked, green worked, blue no connectivity. So these could just be a matter of moving it. It could be a matter of missing the wires completely. I have a little green indicator light and I can hear the fan on. Come on. And apparently I turned it off instead of turned it on. Like I said, you're going to learn. Alright. Green. Red. Still can't get blue. This will be the most frustrating, I guess, part of it all, is getting this set up, and you might have to come out and in a couple times. There is a lot of wires, but they're shoved into some silicone, and it may look like they're all in. Don't ask me why. I've had just a single color drop out. You may have to recut this. For some reason, you just push in and you drop a wire. I keep turning it off for safety. Silly me, right? Come on. Alright, she's powered. Green, red. Wow, blue just does not want to connect right now. There we go. Alright, so doesn't look like it's seated any differently than it was before. And then let's see. So I got blue, red, green. We are dealing with a 24-volt system. You do not want to cross the wires. We have sparked this a couple times. So now the fun part is to get this lined up. Remember I had told you the V plus is on the bottom, then it goes RGB. The colors on your connector may not match, so you definitely want to know what these pin connectors structure are, so that when you plug this in, regardless of color, so I know on the bottom one, this one happens to be black for this connector, but I know the RGB colors on these will not match the colors in the cable. Alright, so again, for me, my V plus is white. Should have said that earlier. So so green is green, red is blue, blue is red. Like I said, if you just know how it wires, this will go in the terminal block. When you use your ribbon cable to connect up to your controller, as long as you keep those colors consistent, on the other end it won't matter. So that went through pretty quickly. Our ribbon is ready. Told you, you'd see everybody. Good, bad, and everything. Alright. Clinton, this was working fine before you came in. Alright, now we're marking our coroplast to get in. We have an inset of 3.5 inches off the outside edge. And then what we're doing, since we're assuming the coroplast is done correctly at 2 feet, then I'm marking a center square. Alright, so that's the coroplast prepped, and then we use clear channel. This is about 39.5 inches long, so to make it regimented and easy, we're going to cut this thing into 3 11-inch pieces so that you have your top and 2 sides. And then just because I've already got the tape measure out, I'm going to mark the center line of each 11-inch piece now. At 5.5 inches in, because it's 11 inches, right? Well, this will allow me to line things up with my marks later. I like to use the same chopper I was chopping the tape with, the ribbon tape with. This may feel like it's about to crunch things, and it does kind of. But don't worry about how much that crimps the end. So that's our top and side pieces, and then on the last one, you're just going to cut it in half. As you can see, the bottom is the 2 ends, so we'll need 2 pieces for that. Alright, back to our ribbon tape. So to make this as simple as possible, yeah, I know, simple, right? What I do is I take the tape, find the center, and I take my first 11-inch piece, I work from the top and work my way around so that my corners are consistent. And I get the line in the center to match this. This is definitely what we'll be editing. I have not found any specialty tools for this. Somebody will brilliantly find something. So I just make sure the marks are lined up. And then to keep it consistent, to make our corners, we measure 4.5 inches. Mm-hmm. So by measuring the same distance as I curve, the corners should be even, and you don't have to worry about how to measure a curve. Just measure the distance when it's straight. When you pull it around, it should be consistent. Alright, so I like to work the top of the coroplast lines running right to left to give me a nice easy way to make them straight. I already have my center lines on my track from before. Actually, I need those on the outside. And this will be helping me line up with the lines we made on the coroplast earlier. And then your 2 pieces, little pieces, come back into play. These can be measured from the ends as well. It should be about 4.5 inches, which it is, but because it's also the end and it tends to curl, you're good just running it to the end. And then this one just goes right behind the bracket. Alright, so you can kind of see how our square is going to come together pretty quick. We're going to start, we could test it again. I got no problem with that. But it really isn't going to make any difference right now to me. I do know I've jiggled it around pretty good. Red, blue, green, so she's still behaving fine. Any kind of movement can adjust here, which is why he's saying, should we test it again? So now we're going to start punching holes to put our zip ties in. And some of our electronic screwdrivers you guys got probably laying around, you know, whether it's a small Phillips head. I actually have from my soldering kit just a plastic awl. What I'm going to do is I'm going to line up my center line with the center line mark here. And about 2 inches in from the outside, I'm just going to poke a hole on both sides, kind of moving the coroplast so the holes stay underneath it. These can be as consistent as you like, top to bottom, but it's not going to matter top to bottom when we get down there. This is coroplast. You're going to want to push holes through. If you push your holes from the other direction, then you wind up with it standing up, so this keeps the surface pretty smooth. So poking the holes, put the zip ties in, and this is going to hold the track square up against that. I run it from the other direction just for consistency, working on the back hole, the inside hole first. This can be kind of fun. You might have to repoke a hole. For the most part, if you got these holes underneath the track, it won't really matter. By consistently pulling from the inside to the outside, it'll make it pretty flush on the back. Poke it back through. This is not even in the zip tie yet, but I'm going to make sure my marks for center mark line back up before I put it through. If you don't tighten this down all the way, you'll be able to make some subtle adjustments, because just the push and pull of rubber on vinyl. But once this thing is pulled tight, it's really not going to move. So just cinch it down so you can just still move it if something comes out wrong, or for some reason you got to pull it apart to fix that connector. So far we haven't had any problems with the connectors are working. Just now that I've said that. And then just adjust, make sure they're straight just for visual appearance. And work on the sides. Same. Like I said, we're not pulling it tight, just getting it lined up. With our center line, I don't even have these put together yet, and it's holding on pretty good. Alright, now our other side, leaving the bottom for last, and you'll see why soon. It's a trickier part. But by getting this all straight the first time, now it's been suggested to try to make the holes here line up with the zip ties just for visual. You're not going to get top and bottom lined up, but for right and left, if you can, it'd be good to make sure they were like, say, 8 inch apart. I mean, you got an 11-inch piece. So 2-inch inset would be about 8 inches apart. Take that one however important you might need to make it. So we've made our center line before. By using the coroplast stripes right to left, I'm able to line up with this line, pull back a little bit to match that curve, and then just poke my holes here. And then of course you're going to do the same thing on this side. Now there's going to be quite like a 4-inch gap, but you're going to need that to make that hole and curve through. As you can see, the gaps are going to play a little differently as the cut lines, and if you have to retrim anything, may actually adjust. So this gives you the most flexibility on the bottom to just make this work. You definitely don't want to use just one on the bottom. I know they're short pieces, and these are straight to keep them, but if you only do one, they can still flex a little bit, so I'm still doing two, just to make sure as you're moving them around, or if somebody bumps them, or if you're portable, that they're as secure as possible. By the way, I'm using 8-inch zip ties. As you can see, there's a lot of tail on it, but that's kind of the easiest. If you can get 6 inches ones, you don't need a lot of strength on these. 4 inches was way too small to fight with. I wouldn't go any longer because the zip ties start to get wider at that point. And then you have to make really big holes and you have these really wide zip ties. And again, like I said, if we were zip tying the other sides, you got a lot of play until you zip tie them tight. Alright, and that's right there on that line. And then again, I'm going to pull this up and then pull it back like I said before. Keeping it in line. Again, I'm using 2 zip ties over here just to make sure it holds straight and tight, keeps the curve as well as the end piece straight. So we have our square. Now the fun part also, we get to come back over here, come just outside past, trying to keep everything straight, and poke a really big hole. Because we need to get this control cable through. I mean, if you can only get a small awl and then use a bigger screwdriver, or even a pen's a little too big. You noticed earlier I didn't trim up any of these cables because I knew I was going to have to do this later. You don't want to make this too big because you still want it to kind of disappear and suck the cable in and hold it down. You might have to turn it a little bit just to kind of get it to go straight as possible. Like I said, this one's got a gap. Those have different size gaps, but the important thing is to keep your structure straight and still look like a square. So, after all that jimmying about, let's see and just test and see if she's still viable. I'm not going to yank everything around. Let's see here. There's green, blue, sometimes they get crossed up, and there's red. Alright, turn that off, and then all there really is to just kind of tighten up your zip ties here, and then trim off your excess to just give you nice clean back. I'm only doing half of those real quick. Now, after we get this done, we've actually found some terminal blocks. So, like I said, ins and outs. You got your different colors, different designs, and then for us, we just have the ability, so completely color controllable. You guys can hang these pretty easily. They're very lightweight. 2x2 coroplast with just some simple ribbon cable. Most of this stuff is almost like pixel tape covered in silicone. So that's about as smooth and easy as it gets.